City of Marshfield's Communications Director, and this is our council preview today, and this is for the upcoming council meeting. It's already May 28th, and I have Steve Barg. It's not the 28th today, but we're going to be talking about the council meeting for the 28th. And Steve, welcome here to our council preview.
Thanks, Tom. Spring has really flown by, hasn't it?
Yes, and I couldn't believe it. You brought this here for me, this information, and I'm like, wow, the 28th. Yeah. And that's going to be after Memorial Day already.
Incredible. It's amazing.
Well, we have quite a few things. We want to recap the meeting from the 14th. There's a few things that I would like you to touch base on for us and our viewers that can help us out. And let's talk about Gordy Earl, the appointment. There was some discussion that happened. Can you just recap us on that, please?
Yeah, there was. And this has been kind of a long road, but we've hit the end of it now. The mayor was looking to reappoint someone to the Police and Fire Commission and was looking at someone other than the person who had been holding that position, Nate Miller. And he made a proposal of someone, and that one was not accepted. And so he went back to the drawing board and decided to recommend Gordy Earl. And there was a lot of discussion on that. And ultimately, the council voted in favor of Gordy Earl by a narrow vote. So he'll begin serving. His first meeting will be in early June with the Police and Fire Commission. And I don't think anybody has a doubt that Gordy will be doing a good job. Not only was on the council for 10 years, but he also has been involved in police and fire matters. He actually has attended a lot of the meetings, Tom, even though he's not a commission member. But it's good to have that behind us. I know that there are some thoughts about how the mayoral process works. Really haven't dealt with that since I've been here until now, but the process again is the mayor makes an appointment of his choosing and it needs council approval to be effective. So normally those are fairly routine, but this time we had a couple bumps in the road, but we got through it, and Gordy is ready to serve.
All right, and this is for the Police and Fire Commission, is that correct? It's a commission, and that's where somebody would get appointed by the mayor to sit on that. Now this person, which is Gordy Earl now, starting in June, what do they provide the leadership? Do they provide a report to the council of what happens? I'm just kind of wanted to touch base on that for a minute.
Well, a couple of things. First of all, what the Police and Fire Commission does, they have pretty significant responsibilities under state law. In fact, here in Marshfield, we have what's called optional power. So the commission is empowered to make a lot of decisions about the operations of the police and fire departments without council approval. Budgetarily, of course, the council still holds the purse strings. But we have these council members on various boards, committees, and commissions. And the intent is that they're there to represent council thoughts and hopefully, ideally, bring back reports, bring back updates from those committees and commissions as to what's happening. And, you know, you'll be hearing us talk more in the coming weeks, I think, about making sure people are reporting back. I mean, the idea that you go to the meeting is great, but, you know, if you're the only city representative there at some of these advisory groups, for example, we'd like to know what they're talking about in advance of perhaps a request. So I think it's going to be inherent on Gordy and others, I should say incumbent, on them to come back and let people know what they're doing so that we all stay in the loop.
Definitely. Well, that helps out myself as well as our viewers to know a little bit about that position. So
it does.
Yep.
And you know, there's so many committees, boards, and commissions, Tom. No one can go to all of them. So those connections and that information sharing is critical.
Oh, definitely. That's why we're a team.
Yep.
And we need to work as a team.
Absolutely.
We have one other thing, CIP. This is actually my first CIP. Tell me a little bit about that. We touched base at it. It was granted approval. Is that right, on the last council meeting?
It was, and I guess the noteworthy things, a couple of things, Tom. Number one, we altered the process this year, made it more staff-driven, but the council was very pleased with staff's work, and on May 2nd, they gave it a thumbs up. It was formally approved on May 14th. Again, for people who didn't see us last time, this is a 5-year blueprint where we look at streets, we look at parks, we look at all the major expenditures that we're going to hopefully be able to take on, and we prioritize them, schedule them out by year, how we're going to pay for them. Is it going to be borrowing? Is it going to be tax levy? Is it going to be grants? Is it going to be donations or room tax? And then, you know, it changes from year to year. Next year, we'll look at it and we'll say, oh my gosh, we have a bigger need in this area. Let's shift it around. But the really interesting thing I want to point out to the viewers right now, too, is the way we're doing it this year, we made it very clear to the council that those items that they approved are going to be in the 2020 budget. So that first year is the most critical, and we're expecting them to be able to keep those in the budget because they've been deemed to be high priority. I think it went really well. Dan Kinect, again, I've said it before, did a magnificent job. He saw this at a conference, you know, that there were different ways to do capital improvement programs. took the ball, ran with it, led the process, and it came out to a very good outcome.
Now, is the CIP generally for all departments, or is it really for some of the bigger ones like the city public works department, or is it all departments encompassing?
Well, historically, before this year, Tom, it used to be for largely just a few departments. It was mainly major street projects, major park improvements, building facility upgrades, maybe if we had to, do some work on City Hall or, other city-owned properties. But the vision that Dan got from this conference and brought back is, why don't we make it for all larger purchases? What about our technology department? They want to get some financial software. They have for a long time. Well, financial software is not usually looked at as a capital item, but we're talking hundreds of thousands of dollars over 5 years. So let's get them in the loop so that they can compete for some of these same dollars through this process and be in a better standing when it comes to the annual budget. It kind of treats everybody a little bit more fairly across the board.
Definitely, and come October, which is different than CIP, that's our general budget that we go over in October. 3-4 different council sessions, is that correct? Or actually, I shouldn't say council, I should probably say finance and budget and personnel. I would assume that's where it goes first. And they discuss, I guess I'm going from where I came from is the way it went, and that'll take 3 or 4 times to discuss the budget for 2020.
Yep.
So there's no difference in that process, but this should help us be a lot further along.
Yeah, it should. It really kind of cements what those high dollar value projects are going to be. And later, as we dovetail into the May 28th agenda, Tom, we're going to have an item about the calendar of meetings for the 2020 budget process. So it's a good transition when we get there.
You bet. Well, with that said, I want to thank you for joining us here on Council Preview. I have Steve Barg, and we're going to jump right into the next council meeting, which takes place on Tuesday, May 28th, day after Memorial Day. Well, let's talk about a public hearing. It's kind of on your first piece that you had provided me, and we are taping this, guys, on Wednesday before that meeting, so we want to provide that to you right away and get that information out. So it's about an ordinance amending.
Yeah, there's going to be a public hearing right at the beginning of the meeting, Tom, after the Pledge of Allegiance. That's going to give people a chance to comment if they want to on a proposed ordinance amending the 2017 to 2037 comprehensive plan. A lot of people might be here comprehensive plan and think, my gosh, how many plans does the city have? You just talked about the capital improvement program, and I know that if I come into your office, Steve, I'll see them all over the shelf. What makes this different? This is a plan that was adopted through the Plan Commission and ultimately by the council that is a 20-year forward-thinking document about what we want the city to be in housing, in economic development, in parks. It plans what we want to do in terms of further development of our community and redevelopment as certain opportunities come available. Well, you say that you're going to do this for 20 years, and you say, well, that's great, we're all set till 2037. Wrong. You get a year or two into it and you start saying, you know what, things are already changing. And I've got a memo here in the packet for you, and it'll be in the council packet from Bryce Hembrick, our city planner. It outlines some of the things that are included in this, in this proposed changes. It talks about the housing chapter. It talks about the land use chapter. Conditions change. What happens is, even in housing, we had a housing study done about 5 years ago, and it said, you know what, City of Marshfield, you guys need more multifamily. So we worked with some people, we provided some minor incentives, and we got some new apartments built behind Walmart, on the Heritage Drive. There's some going up over by the high school. Well, in the world of housing, for example, 2 or 3 years, a lot changes. Are people more looking to own? Are they looking to rent? What are millennials doing? So as we go through the 20 years, Tom, what you're going to see is, I would think periodically, like it's happening here, we're going to say, you know what, we found a couple things that maybe we got to look at changing what it is we're trying to promote in the community and make them more in line with what the current discussions are. And these are, I would say, smaller examples of that.
Definitely. Haven't you seen such a change in your career as city administrator of how cities now need to work even closer with the public than it used to be? I mean, there's so much now with communications as myself that's a whole nother part of it, and working as a team. But this is really what's important here, is to plan ahead 20 years, and it will change. It could change in a couple years. It could change sooner than that. But if we're looking at housing and our millennials and our next generation, everyone does live differently. And we all know everybody almost has a cell phone now. So how do you adapt that to what we're doing? That's part of our communication process. If we don't use what the technology's brought,
Oh, absolutely.
we're in trouble.
So true. And 5 years ago when we did the economic development plan, we used a company called Redevelopment Resources. Actually, it was back in 2013, so it's been 6 years. And we charted a course for economic growth and development. Well, a lot of things have changed in 2013. Even looking at economic development more broadly, Tom, it used to be, well, we need more land. You need more land for business development. Well, now it's then became more workforce. And then people talk about housing. What if you got the people who want to move here, but they can't find a place to live? And do we have enough housing options? And now lately the big one has been daycare. There's people who would like to re-enter the workforce, but they can't find daycare in this area of central Wisconsin. Well, if I don't have a place to take my kids, how can I go back to work full time? The world keeps changing every couple of years, and if you're not adapting to it, and if you're not in tune with it, you may fall behind the curve rather quickly.
Most definitely, and I think that's where zoning gets changed at time. You go through all that every 6-7 years, how districts are formed and where the business districts are out of. One of the things I've been noticing, and it's a trend, and you probably grew up with this, and I did as well, is grocery stores. They in some areas they're actually coming back downtown. The smaller grocery store, the millennials living upstairs, smaller homes. It's really, everything does repeat itself in a way.
It does.
It always has, and that's how we learn from our. Yeah. That's why history, I always said, is one of the most important subjects in school to remember, because otherwise you could follow the same paths that you have, and we don't want to do that either, unless they're good. I mean, a lot of them are good, but we want to be careful and really watch our past actions and expand on those. That's my feeling of it.
And I agree. And a decade ago, everybody thought downtowns were dying. Yeah. You drive to smaller communities across Wisconsin or Minnesota, and you'd see things kind of falling apart. And now it's come out with younger people especially. They really want to live in downtown. They really want to come back to downtown. Now, they may be looking for types of businesses that fit their needs. They might be looking for Wi-Fi and coffee shops and certain types of services that haven't historically been offered downtown. But they're not looking for malls as much. They're not looking for big boxes as much. So downtowns have a new, fresh opportunity to attract people. It changes so quickly. If you're not really up to speed on the latest trends, you will miss opportunities to grow your community.
It does. And, I've always said Marshfield has had a great downtown. Back in '96, when I really moved to central Wisconsin, I've been impressed. It's still very full. You see a lot of towns that don't have it. So hopefully we can continue. We have a new coffee shop coming in. That's another piece to our downtown. Those are very popular among millennials, even beyond millennials. I find myself working there nowadays. You don't work in an office. You may find businesses that allow their employees to go there and work because everything's mobile.
Yeah.
So
that's, and just to wrap that one up, you and I were at the mayor's meeting on April 25th, and we had a good cross section of people, and a couple of people who are closer to like late 20s, early 30s spoke, and they made it very clear of what people are looking for. They're looking for experiences. They're looking for different types of products and services. We need to hear all the voices rather than just trying to repeat what we've done in the past, because there's a whole new group of folks out there who would be interested in our downtown if we looked at some different issues and tried to address them.
Definitely. Well, everybody will be hearing more about it as we progress. I know the Mayor, Bob McManus, will be having a meeting later in June. Yes. So we'll let you guys know more about that as it's coming up closer to that date. Let's talk about Board of Public Works. That was taking place, that meeting took place on May 20th. On the agenda, there's a few things about asphalt, and I'll just have you recap.
Yeah, I think the most important item that came out of the meeting is a recommendation to approve an asphalt seal coat program with a company called Farner Asphalt Sealers out of Plover, roughly $250,000, maybe a little bit less or whatever. But the main thing here I want to tell our viewers, again, is people are looking for the bigger projects. When are they going to totally redo my street? My street was built in 1975. It needs to be dug up and rebuilt. And we do those as we have money. But it's very important to do the maintenance. And so something like seal coating, some cities maybe are trying to cut their budgets and maybe trim back a little bit on crack sealing and seal coating. That's really the heart of trying to make longer life out of streets and keep them from having cracks and holes. So by spending nearly $250,000 on some of our streets, and you see the maps as you flip through, all the different sections are laid out. A person, if they want to know if their street is going to be seal coated this summer, they can call us. We can share some of this information. But as many street sections as we can possibly do to put that protective, action into play, and to make sure we're getting the most life out of our streets before having the major problems that you have to do significant work on is so critical.
Most definitely, and I see it. It's a chip seal, fog seal. That's kind of, I believe, if that fine gravel that they put over there.
Basically,
And if I understand it right, that does protect and help a street's life by 5 to 7 years at times.
Yeah.
So that could save quite a bit of money, and it might be a little bit of a nuisance at first. We all hear it when we drive over, but it's important. And then street sweepers or our public works department will sweep that up, and no worries. I think it stays on for like maybe a couple weeks or a month, I'm not sure. But if you guys are interested, please let me know more of what you're looking for in information like this. You're watching this. We can provide this on so many platforms. I see it here in our council meeting, and you're saying, well, what roads are going to be? Well, let us know. Do you want to make sure it's on the website? Is it easy to find? Is it on Facebook? Is it on TV? Is it posted on a bulletin board somewhere? Just let me know. Call me, 715-486-2070. I want to know how you guys want information, and that's part of my job here, not just the talking on television, but I want to provide that, and I will do that. I just want to hear from you guys. So
yeah, I applaud that. Just to end by saying that the biggest killer of streets is poor drainage, and we're trying to prevent poor drainage by filling these cracks and providing the coverings that are needed to lengthen the life. And I love what you just said, Tom. The fact of the matter is, we're trying so hard with your help and the mayor and others to get the word out so people are not caught off guard when these projects occur in their areas.
Yeah, and we all know some people drive really nice cars and have maybe a classic car that don't want to drive, but they're aware of it. At that time, they can go do a detour. We just need to provide that before they get there. It's called planning, and we're going to work towards that. That is definitely our goal. I've only been here, I guess, a little over 4 months, but that's one of my goals. And but I need help along the way to let people tell me what they want. I always want to do that. So let's talk about stewardship award here. That's pretty neat. The Historic Preservation Committee.
Yeah, we're going to have a couple of presentations. One of them it's a nice thing we do. It's an annual award presented to someone who, or in this case, 2 people, who have done something over and above to try and help preserve our history, to help recognize and maintain what we have here in Marshfield, do something positive to protect our heritage. And I'll be honest with you, at this point, I'm not even sure what these 2 individuals in this case have done to deserve it. I've seen the past presentations. It's a really nice thing, and Vicki Schnitzler, our chairperson of the Historic Preservation Committee, will be presenting the award this time to Daniel Wolfgram and Marilyn Dawson, and I look forward, like maybe some of you do at home, to hearing what did they do that was over and above to help continue to protect and preserve what we have here in Marshfield.
Alrighty, well, I look forward to that and hearing that at the podium. They'll come up, Vicki, and provide that report to all of us, and we'll be able to bring that live on our cable channel. Coming up. Let's talk about Marshfield Made New. That's something we had a sneak peek back about a month ago or so. Let's talk a little bit about it.
Yeah, the Convention and Visitors Bureau has been looking for a while at trying to maybe rebrand a little bit. And you want brands to be kind of simple and something people can grab onto. And you also want to try and get some cooperation, not just between the Convention and Visitors Bureau members itself, but with Main Street and the Chamber of Commerce and the city and others, to try and be working in the right direction to attract tourists, to bring events here, to make Marshfield a place that people want to do business. And I think this Marshfield Made New is going to really excite people. What they're trying to do in this, and you saw this as well, is kind of tie all the great things we have here, the history, the downtown buildings have a great historic value, to where we're going. So some people have said, as we try and improve the city, are we leaving our heritage behind? We were a railroad community and all these other things. Are we just kind of leaving that in the dust? No, we're going to kind of play up what we've got and all the great things that have happened here through the 1800s and 1900s, but tie it to a vision for the future. And Marshfield Made New is meant to say, we're taking what we've built in the past, we're using it, we're building on it, but we're going here and we're excited about it.
I think, yes, definitely it's the way to go. Marshfield Convention and Visitor Bureau, as well as the Chamber, they're together. But you're going to see all of us work together. I think that's part of this whole Marshfield Made New. You're going to see us, community media, which is what we are, public access, Marshfield Media Access, and we want to help them, help the city grow by providing that information, just like last night. I went to a ribbon cutting over at the Shirley's place, and they are there as well. But if we all network together, I think you'll see a positive piece coming out for the city, and it kind of just blends into. It does. Marshfield made you.
It does, and I commend Mayor McManus. That meeting we had on April 25th, and like you said, the follow-up is going to be on June 27th, identifying 3 areas: housing, economic development, I believe it was, and quality of life, and saying to the people from all the different organizations, what can you do to help further these goals? How can we work together? Yep. And we don't want overlap, we don't want gaps, we want to identify the needs and then kind of partner. I know that sounds kind of like buzzwordish, we're always talking about collaboration and partnerships, but in the area of economic development especially, it is so important to be working together. And it's easy to go off in your own world and say, well, that's your problem, Main Street. You take care of that, it's got nothing to do with us. That usually doesn't get success.
No, it doesn't. And that kind of piggies back on what we talked about, what cities do differently now than they may have done in your career 10 to 15 to 20 years
absolutely.
ago. It really is part of what we need to be. We are not a business, but we want to work together. There is a lot of areas when people look at us from outside, hotel, visitor, a lot of times they look at us as the city, and they may not look at the CVB right away. It depends on what kind of comes up in the metadata for the website, but just in general, I think most people look at the logo when they come in, the signs out front when they come into the town and see a welcoming city. Events like we have at the Wenzel Plaza, that's all part of it, but we're all part of it too to make that happen. We provide these parks here for the people to do that, like the CVB or Main Street. So that's what I feel. So I'm looking forward to that.
Yeah, economic development and tourism is very competitive.
Yep.
And while you and I are having this conversation, they're having the same conversations probably in Point, Rapids, Wausau, Eau Claire, Green Bay, everywhere, and we're all competing for the interest of people who might want to come and spend time here and spend dollars here. We need to be on the same page.
Most definitely. Just one thing, I guess, and I'll say it on camera, one thing I always look at is hopefully down the road we all work a little bit more regional too, between our communities with Rapids and Stevens Point, Mosinee, all those, even Wausau, just because of the county area. I think that's something that we all need to work closer to. We all will benefit from a larger pool of people, and people will come here for the experience of something different maybe than Rapids has or Marshfield. So if we all team together, I think it'll be a win-win for all of us. That's my feeling of it.
Yeah, and Karen Olson, our business development director, has said that before, and I've heard others say it as well. When there's a prospect looking at somewhere in Wisconsin building a new plant, if it ends up in Stevens Point and we're able to support them in some way by saying Central Wisconsin is a great place to set up shop, we gain too. I mean, it's good for all of us. At some points, we're competitors. There are times when it comes down to we're either going to build in Wausau or we're going to build in Marshfield. But there's also that level of cooperation that says what happens in Central Wisconsin ultimately benefits everybody.
It does. I drive Highway 10 every day, and you can see people going back and forth. When I worked in Rapids, you could really see the infrastructure coming from Stevens Point. But it's kind of like that aluminum company, Rapids got the bid. They $80 million piece in their industrial park. Not that they didn't need it. We probably would love to hear as well. But I think still there may be some of our workers that go there to work. They're going to have well over 100, maybe 200 employees down the road, and so that money does come back here at times. So that's why I look at it.
And we made a good faith effort to get them here, and they chose Rapids. We don't begrudge them that at all.
Nope. All right. Well, let's move on here. I know we keep going, and I keep the conversation going. Let's talk about financial audit. That'll come from Ron.
Yeah, the 2018 financial audit is going to be introduced by Ron Allman, our finance director, but it's going to be presented by somebody from Clifton Larson Allen. They used to be called Schenck, but now there's been a change there. And the reason this is significant, Tom, is because it's kind of the basis under which we go into the budget process. The audit doesn't get a lot of, sometimes people look at an audit and they say, there's a lot of numbers on these 60 pages. But the results of last year and where the monies are and how good our fund condition is, whether it's general fund, whether it's special funds, does serve as the foundation for our future financial planning, both budget and CIP. So I mean, it will be interesting to see how did the year end in 2018. Did we end up with a surplus or a deficit? Usually we run a little bit of a surplus. And what do things look like as we head forward? And then they usually have a half a dozen or so recommendations for things we ought to look at to improve our financial procedures and our protocol, things that will help us be more effective.
All righty. Let's talk about a first reading from Bryce, our city planner.
Yeah, that's really just to follow up on what we had the public hearing on earlier in the meeting. If the public doesn't have a lot of concerns, and if the council says that what the Plan Commission agreed to is acceptable, you'll probably see the first reading. And again, for people at home, what do you mean first reading, second reading? We usually read ordinances twice. So the reason why we do that is to allow the public, you watching at home, a chance to hear about something and then comment. If you heard it for the first time and they voted on it at that meeting, people at home might be saying, wait a minute, I don't like that housing change, but you acted on it last night already. This gives them 2 weeks before the second reading to say, look, I'm going to call my mayor, I'm going to call somebody in the council and express concerns about these changes. So it'll be a first reading, and assuming that there's no public hearing concerns, it will likely move forward to second reading on June 11th.
All right. Yes, so you will allow, well, not say allow, but we encourage residents to call their alderperson or mayor in their district, mayors, all districts. And if they want to come, that's where the public comment period would take place. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Okay. And I'm just curious on camera, I want to know a little bit about, does an alderperson, can they give time to somebody during the actual discussion point in our meetings here, or is that different?
That's up to the mayor. And here's what happens. A public hearing requires that the mayor allow anybody who wants to speak. So if someone wants to come up during the public hearing and say, look, this housing change is ridiculous, I can't accept this. If they want to come up during the discussion of the ordinance, they can raise their hand and then the mayor can choose at his or her own discretion to allow it. But they can very easily look at the person and say, look, you had your chance during the public comment period. Now it's just going to be the council talking about this. And even the mayor can vary that based upon the issue. If there's a high profile issue that people want to comment on and maybe they didn't have a chance earlier, he or she can allow it, but that's at their discretion.
All right. Well, that helps me understand, and our viewers as well, a little bit about when that happens. Let's move on to Communications Committee. That part has to do with what we do here.
We've talked about that, and I've sworn that I want to get this to the council, and I'm certainly hoping to do it next Tuesday, Tom, with your help as well. But again, this would be, I think we touched on this in a previous show, an advisory committee to you as communications director to be a help to you, to point out areas where they think that maybe, whether it be social media, whether it be website, whether it be cable TV operations, ways that we could better inform and educate the public. It would not be the role of the previous cable TV committee that was more direct hands-on oversight, but it'd be a resource for you, largely for bouncing ideas off you and talking with you about how we can get to the public more efficiently.
Exactly. And I encourage you to submit your name to the mayor, is where it's going now.
Yep.
If you can email him, you can give him a call. Give us a call if you are not sure where to go. Call the main number. You can provide that your name, and if you're interested to be on it. We're looking at 5 to 7 people, I believe, at this point. Yeah. And I'm very open and very excited about it. Again, I take all ideas. I think any idea is a good idea, and look at it to see if it's going to work in our area. I am very open to everyone's suggestions. That's how I grow. That's how we grow. This isn't our station. This isn't all of the city for the station. Remember, communications is for outlying. I also provide internal communications, but that's a different thing. If we have good internal communications, our external communications will succeed, but not without your help. And that's why we want to have a committee. I think it's essential to have one to hear from you, because we're doing this for you. So let us know. And I think our Mayor Bob will be glad to get that going. And I think that'll still take a few months. Is that right, in the process?
It'll take a little while to unfold, but hopefully by late this summer we'll have it in place. And you might be sitting at home. You might be one of these people I hear from periodically that says, I didn't even know about the Wenzel Family Plaza until I saw the heavy equipment out there. Or I didn't know about the new new projects at the zoo, the Kodiak Bears or whatever, until I was out there and I said, oh my gosh, what's going on? You may have ideas as to how we can better reach you and your neighbors. You might be a good person to have on board on this committee.
Yeah, and feel free to always call me. I'm always open to hearing different things. My phone is always available. Leave a message 24/7. I will get back to you as soon as I can and see what I can do to help with that request or question that you may have. Let's talk about the 2020 budget. We talked about that earlier.
Yeah. You got something in the back of what I handed out there for this meeting about the 2020 budget calendar. Now, there's a separate budget calendar that's for staff, and that has some internal dates as to when department heads have to submit their budgets to me and these types of things. But the budget calendar we're presenting to the council that we hope they'll embrace on Tuesday night, there would be an overview of the process on June 25th, and the reason for that is we're changing the process a little bit, and you'll hear more about that as we go forward. And then on August 27th, we'd have a report at a council meeting about how things are looking at that point, kind of a checkpoint or a milestone, and say we've collected all the budgets from department heads and we've tried to compare them to the revenues that might be available. Here's kind of the lay of the land, so you start getting used to it, some of the challenges we might face. And then on Friday, October 11th, we would be delivering the budget to the council. We hope before then, but we would commit to the 11th. And then, Tom, there's a series of 3 meetings we've got scheduled after that, 1 per week, in which the council would go through, discuss the budget requests, try and balance it out. They're going to have to determine what tax rate they find acceptable, what spending that they can embrace. And the goal would be by Tuesday, October 29th, hopefully, by that 3rd meeting, to sign off on a preliminary budget. And then on November 26th, we would bring that to the public, and we would see if they find it acceptable. Now, that makes it sound like the public shouldn't weigh in until the 26th. No, weigh in early. Even now, Tom, it's not too early. If you think, you know what, I really want to see the park next to my house improved, or I want to see some work done on these streets over here, or I want to see the taxes, the tax rate held, whatever it is you thought, get in the hopper earlier with our elected officials. Emails, I share with them all the time. They know what people are thinking. You don't have to wait till the public hearing to weigh in on your thoughts about taxing and spending issues.
Yes, most definitely. Well, Steve, you should be proud to have this. Our residents should be proud that you're this far into November 26th. It's all laid out. I've worked for city government for a long time, and I'm very impressed. And this gives us a really, really good roadmap. As myself, June 25th, start the process. Yep. Although we all look at our budgets, and that's where CIP comes in, and just planning in general. But we have the dates, and we'll provide those for our viewers if they want to tune in. We'll be providing those budget meetings, I believe. Available.
Absolutely.
And they can weigh in. They can come down. We encourage you to come down to these meetings. They're open. It's not closed session.
Yeah.
Every meeting, as I understand that we do most meetings, there's public comment.
Yes.
So
always.
This is your chance. Again, I've been into communities that don't have that. So I applaud our city for doing this. So wonderful.
Thank you. And I'm really excited about the August 27th meeting, Tom, because that's the point where we're going to do something a little bit different than we've done it in the past, but it's going to be a checkpoint, and we're going to say, look, this is the way the lay of the land looks. So before we get into early October and you have to start making decisions, be thinking it's looking good, it's looking not so good, it's looking like we're going to have to be able to do some trimming. Yep. Get them thinking about what they might be facing so they're not caught off guard, and the public as well when we get to early October.
Right. And I know not everybody can attend a council meeting or a meeting like this or even watch it, but it's my job to provide you information along the way in this process that I can release to you, which Steve will let me know that what I can do. Maybe we can do a separate show, a short video. That's something that I plan to do. So, well, we're almost out of time, aren't we?
Yeah, but it's a full meeting. Got a lot of items on the agenda, and looking forward to it.
Yeah, I always wondered how we could do 2 council meetings in a month, but there's plenty of business to be done.
There is.
And we'll continue providing that in our council previews the week before and touching base. If you have any questions for me, give me a call anytime, 715-486-2070. We're in our new studio here, and room 108 is what we call it, and City Hall Plaza. I don't have a name yet, but I'm pretty sure the owners will probably have a name down
Yeah,
the
they
road.
probably will,
We'll
yeah.
see what happens. We'll bring it to you when they do. Again, thanks, Steve, for bringing that. Tune in on March 28th.
May 28th.
Oh, March.
That's
I'm
all
in-
right. I just don't want to go back to winter. Is
No,
the
I
reason
don't either.
jumped in.
And it feels like it today
It kinda
again.
does. It's
A
kinda
little
raw.
bit. Yes, May 28th. Thanks for telling me that. 6 p.m. Come on down in person or watch on our channels. And soon we'll probably have it on our Facebook page. It has to go to council as well. So thanks again for joining us on this show on Council Preview.